Hello everyone, so today I'll be covering Ind AS 40 investment property, and I'm covering this video again because of certain minor amendments in the course, and because all of you like to when I make the video based on ICI SM, so I'm using the SM firstly, and secondly for the non-Hindi audience this video will be in English. So today we'll be covering investment property again, and it is a easy topic, so we'll cover it quickly, but we'll cover everything in detail. So I'll directly jump to the part where the Ind AS starts, that is the scope of Ind AS. So the scope of investment property, it is applied for the recognition, measurement and disclosure of investment property. Now this standard does not apply to two cases. Firstly is biological assets, which is covered under Ind AS 41 and Ind AS 16 because of bearer plants, and secondly there is mineral rights and mineral reserves such as oil, natural gas and non-regenerative resources, because these are all measured as per industry standards, so we cannot apply Ind AS 40 to that. Therefore biological assets and mineral rights and mineral reserves both are covered under separate Ind AS or as per industry standards, but are not covered under Ind AS 40. Now we'll move on to the definition, and the definition of investment property is the most important definition here. So investment property is what? Investment property is any property. Now property contains four things. First is land, second is building, third is part of building, and fourth is land and building both. So land or building or part of a building or land and building both. Now investment property is a property which is held. Now under held also there are two conditions. Firstly it can be owned, that is held by the owner, or secondly it can be taken by us under lease as a ROU asset, which is covered under Ind AS 116 leases. So held means also two things, either it can be owned by us or it can be taken on a lease by us. So investment property is a property has four conditions, which is held has two conditions. Investment property is a property which is held to either earn rentals or for capital appreciation or for both. That is, either we'll earn rental income out of that if I'm giving the asset further on lease or rent, so I'll earn rental income, or if I'm holding the property so that on a future date I'll sell it at an higher value, that is for capital appreciation, then also it is covered under investment property Ind AS 40. Or if I have given it on lease or rent so that I'll earn rental income and at a future date I expect to sell it at a higher price, then I'm holding it for both, to earn rental income as well as for capital appreciation. So investment property, I'll summarize it again. It is a property. Property means land, building or part of building, or land and building both. It is a property which is held either by ourselves as a owner or we have taken it on lease. And what are we doing with the property? We are either giving it out to someone for earning rental income, or we are holding it for capital appreciation, or both. Now this does not cover two kinds of properties. Firstly is the property which is used in production or supply of goods or services or for administrative purposes. So if you remember, this is covered under Ind AS 16 property, plant and equipment. This is nothing but the definition of property, plant and equipment under Ind AS 16. And second is sale in ordinary course of business, that is Ind AS 2 inventories. So if any property is used as an inventory under Ind AS 2 or as a PP under Ind AS 16, then it cannot be covered under investment property Ind AS 40. So this is the definition of investment property. Hope it's clear. Now second definition will be of owner occupied property. Owner occupied property is nothing but the property under Ind AS 16. Now owner occupied property is the property held by the owner or lessee as a ROU asset. Again, see, this is the basic amendment which is there in Ind AS 40 with regards to Ind AS 116. That is, wherever we had the word owner, now we also have the word ROU asset because of Ind AS 116, on which I have made a separate video. So this is the main amendment which we will be covering here. Owner occupied property is a property. Again, the word used here is held, and again held has two connotations. First is either we can own it, or secondly we can take it on lease as a ROU asset. So owner occupied property is a property held for use in production or supply of goods or for administrative purposes. That is, this is the same definition which we covered here. So owner occupied property is nothing but the property as per Ind AS 16 property, plant and equipment. Third definition is of fair value, which is covered under Ind AS 113. This is not that relevant. Fourth definition is of cost. So cost means nothing but whatever amount we are paying for acquiring the asset or the property here. So cost is nothing but the amount of cash and cash equivalents paid or the fair value or whatever amount we are paying for the time being. And the fifth definition is of carrying amount. Now carrying amount is the amount at which we are showing the asset in the balance sheet. Frankly speaking, it is nothing but cost minus accumulated depreciation minus accumulated impairment loss, if any. So that is carrying amount. Now the next topic is classification of property as investment property or as owner occupied property. So we have a property in our books. Now the issue here is whether to classify it under Ind AS 40 or under Ind AS 16. Now the difference here is that Ind AS 40 does not allow us to follow the revaluation model. It only allows us to follow the cost model. Therefore, we have to identify what is it. If it's investment property, we'll follow the cost model. If it is OOP, then we can follow either of them, revaluation or cost model. So first point of distinction is what is the nature of investment property. See, if we are holding the investment property with a view to earn rentals or for capital appreciation or both, as the definition said, in that case we are identifying it as an investment property. Now if we own the property, then we'll definitely refer to Ind AS 40. But if we have taken the asset on lease and we are using it for earning rental or capital appreciation or both, then we'll read Ind AS 40 with Ind AS 116 leases. Similarly, if we are owning the asset for the purpose of production or supply of goods or services or for administrative purposes, in that case we'll classify it under Ind AS 16 PPE as an OOP. But if we do not own the property and we have taken it on lease and we are using it for production or supply of goods or services or for the use of property for administrative purposes, in that case again we'll read it Ind AS 16 along with Ind AS 116, that is leases. So that is the amendment here, that either Ind AS 40 or Ind AS 16 both are to be read along with Ind AS 116 if the property has been taken on lease as a ROU asset. Now secondly, they are giving some examples of investment property. See, if land is held for long-term capital appreciation, so this satisfies the second criteria, that is capital appreciation. Now second example is land held for currently undetermined future use. So if we do not know what we'll use the land for, then it is saying that we can classify it under Ind AS 40 as investment property. Now third and fourth conditions are similar. It is saying that a building is owned or taken on lease and we are further leasing it out on operating leases. If we are leasing it out as an operating lease, in that case we'll earn rental income, and therefore it is satisfying the first condition, that is the building is held for the purpose of earning rental income. Similarly, if the building that is vacant but is held to be leased out under one or more operating leases. See, I have made a mark here because both the conditions are specifying operating leases and not financial leases. Because if we are giving it on a financial lease, in that case, if the view is not to earn rental income, we are basically de-recognizing the assets from our book and the lessee will recognize the asset in his book. Therefore, if we are giving it in financial lease, it cannot be classified as investment property. Only if there is an operating lease, in that case, we will classify the property as an investment property under Ind AS 40. And the last example is property that is being constructed or developed for a future use as investment property. So we are sure about that we are going to use the property as an investment property in near future. So in that case, we can classify it under Ind AS 40. Now these are the examples of cases when the property does not fall under Ind AS 40. First is Ind AS 2, sale in ordinary course of business. Second is Ind AS 16, owner occupied properties, which can be read with Ind AS 116 if it is given on lease. And third is property leased under a finance lease, which I just explained why it will not come under Ind AS 40, investment property. Third point says property held for more than one purpose. Now see, there might arise a condition where we are using the property partly for earning rental income and partly for, let's say, production work. So if we can separate both these functions separately and account for them separately, that is, if we can specify, like for say 40% of the property is for production and 60% of the property is for earning rental income, in that case we can identify 40% of the property as owner occupied property and 60% as investment property. But the issue will be if we cannot account for them as separate properties. If we cannot do that, then the Ind AS 40 says that the property is accounted for as an investment property only if insignificant portion is held for use in production or supply of goods or services or administrative purpose. So it is basically saying that if the owner occupied property purposes is insignificant, then you can classify whole of the property as an investment property if you cannot account for them as separate transactions. Now this is basically a case of judgment, and I do not think there will be a question based on this thing, but still we had to cover it. These are some examples for your reference. Now the fourth point is ancillary services. Now let me give you an example. For example, I have given a building on lease to someone, and that is an operating lease, and I am the owner of the property. In that case, when I see the conditions crudely, I can classify it as an investment property under Ind AS 40 because I own the property which I have given on operating lease for the purpose of earning rental income. Now supposedly, if I am providing some ancillary services, let's say repairing services or maintenance services along with the property, then in that case, if the service I am providing is insignificant, I can classify it as an investment property. So it says that an entity treats such a property as an investment property if the services are insignificant to the arrangement as a whole. On the contrary, let's assume the example of hoteling services. So for example, if I go to a hotel, I get a room for lease. So the person who owns the hotel is definitely going to earn rental income from me, but his main purpose is not to earn rental income, he is providing me services with it, and the services are more significant. So if the services are significant, that is in owner managed hotel cases, we cannot classify it as investment property, rather we have to classify it as owner occupied property, because this arrangement is constituting a service element which is quite significant as compared to the earlier first case. So in the first case, we could classify it as investment property because the service was insignificant, but if the service is significant, as in the second case, we will classify it as owner occupied property under Ind AS 16. Now this is the conclusion that a judgment is needed in either of the cases, because whether the service element is significant or not, or whether the purpose for which the asset is used, that is the or whether when the property is being used for dual purposes, so the significance of the purposes or the significance of services is a matter of judgment. Now fifth point says that the property is leased to other group members. So let me give you an example. For example, Walmart owns 77% stake in Flipkart. Therefore, Walmart is holding company and Flipkart is subsidiary. Now let's say Flipkart owns a property, and Flipkart has given that property on lease to Walmart for the purpose of earning rental income. See, both are separate legal entities. So in case of Flipkart's balance sheet, what Flipkart will do is Flipkart will recognize that property as an investment property because it is giving it on operating lease to Walmart to earn rental income. But when we prepare consolidated financial statements of Walmart, it will include the financials of Flipkart too. Now if we see it on an organizational level, on a consolidated level, we cannot classify the property as an investment property because it does not qualify as an investment property in the consolidated financial statements. It will be treated rather as an owner occupied property from the perspective of the group. So here we have two cases. From individual balance sheet point of view of Flipkart, it is an investment property, but when we go for the consolidated financial statements of Walmart, it is not an investment property, rather it is an owner occupied property under Ind AS 16. Now this is summarizing all the points we have discussed above, so I will go through them. If a property is owned by a company and leased out under an operating lease and not a financial lease, it is definitely IP. IP means investment property. Held as ROU asset and leased out under operating lease, yes. Held as ROU asset, and if it is a financial lease, then it will not be investment property, it will come under Ind AS 16. If a property is acquired with a view of development and resale, therefore if we are reselling it, our objective is to sell it in the ordinary course of business, that is Ind AS 2 inventories. If we have it properties partly owner occupied and partly leased out under investment property, so it depends which purpose is more significant. So if the purpose of leasing out is more significant, then it is Ind AS 40, and if the owner occupied purpose is more significant, then it is Ind AS 16. If it is undetermined use, we covered earlier, it is Ind AS 40. Now the seventh point says property occupied by employees paying rent at less than market rate. So such properties are known as employee occupied properties. Earlier we have covered owner occupied properties, but even employee occupied properties are covered under Ind AS 16. 8 point says investment property held for sale. So non-current asset held for sale are classified under Ind AS 105. And lastly, existing property redeveloped for continued use as IP, again Ind AS 40. Hope I am clear now. I am going to recognition of investment property. So recognition conditions are quite similar for any asset, be it PP, be it inventories. So if we are probable that the FEB, that is the future economic benefits from that asset, will flow to the entity, in our case investment properties, future economic benefits shall flow to the entity. And second condition is that the cost of the asset can be measured reliably, in our case investment property. We can recognize such an asset in our book. And if we do not own the asset and we have taken it on lease, then we shall recognize it as per Ind AS 116 from the lessee's point of view, which I have covered in separate videos. Now subsequent cost, I'll directly jump to the example for subsequent cost. What is happening is X Limited owns a building for earning rental, therefore it is an investment property and the carrying amount is 50 lakhs. Now X Limited wants to construct new walls and it has spent 5 lakhs for that, and it has dismantled the old walls of 1 lakh worth. So what will be the new carrying amount? 54 lakhs. 50 lakhs plus 5 lakhs minus derecognition of the carrying amount of old walls. So this is simple. Now next topic is a bit important, which is measurement at recognition. See, I have earlier covered that any investment property shall be measured at cost. Now let me elaborate on that. Ind AS 40 does not specify what is cost. Ind AS 40 simply says that follow cost model as per Ind AS 16 PP. And Ind AS 16, I have told in a separate video that Ind AS 16 has two models for measurement. First is revaluation model and second is cost model. Now because Ind AS 40 does not allow for revaluation model, it gives a reference to the cost model of Ind AS 16 PP. So if we own the property, then we can measure it at cost simply, cost being the amount we have paid for acquiring the asset, including the transaction cost. So this is a brief definition of what is cost, and it comprises the purchase price, directly attributable expenditure. Now it also says that cost of the investment property is not increased by startup cost, operating losses and abnormal losses. So that is a pretty easy definition. The main point here is that investment property shall be measured at cost only. Now second point is deferred payments. Deferred payment I have covered n number of times in many concepts. If for example investment property is valued at 10 lakh rupees and I do not have the amount to pay the seller, so what I do is I enter an agreement with the seller that at a future date or at multiple future dates I'll pay him certain amounts in installments, and the total amount of installments is, let's say, 12 lakh rupees. So I'm paying 2 lakh rupees more. So what is happening here is 10 lakh is the value of the investment property, 10 lakhs, and 2 lakh is nothing but the finance expense or the interest expense. So Ind AS 40 again says that if you are taking an asset for deferred payments, then the cost of the asset is nothing but the cash price equivalent. In our example, it will be 10 lakh rupees and 2 lakh will be recognized as interest expense in our profit and loss account. Third is important, investment property acquired through exchange of another asset. So I am taking an investment property and in exchange I am giving some other asset or a combination of monetary and non-monetary assets. So let's say I am giving some asset, along with that I am giving some cash, and in return I am taking an investment property. So in such cases, how will I measure the investment property which I am receiving? So Ind AS 40 says that we have to measure the cost of such an investment property at fair value. Now here a series of steps has to be followed, so I'll portray those steps. The first step is we have to see whether the transaction has any commercial substance, and secondly we have to see whether the fair value of the asset given up or the asset received is reliably measured. See, if either of these conditions are not satisfied, then we cannot measure the investment property at fair value. So both these conditions are to be satisfied. Firstly, there should be commercial substance in the transaction. Commercial substance means that the transaction should influence the cash flows of the organization. The transaction should influence the entity's operations, and the influence, that is the difference, the changes that are being caused by such a transaction should be significant relative to the fair value of the assets exchange. So for example, if I am giving up one of my vehicle and in exchange I am acquiring some, let's say, machinery, in that case the vehicle was not generating any cash flows, but the machine will generate cash flows through production. So in that case, this exchange definitely deferred the cash flows, definitely changed the entity's operations, and we can assume that such a change would be significant, and therefore we can assume that the transaction had a commercial substance. So if there is a commercial substance, step 1, we'll go to step 2, that is we'll check whether the fair value of the asset given up or the fair value of the asset received can be reliably measured. Now again, reliably measured means that there should be no significant variations and the probabilities within estimates within a range can be reasonably assessed. Estimates within a range means, for example, we say that there is a 25% probability of the value being 9 lakhs, there is a 50% probability of the value being 10 lakhs, and there is a 25% probability of the value being 11 lakhs. In that case, if we do 0.25 into 9 lakhs and 0.50 into 10 lakhs and 0.25 into 11 lakhs, then we'll arrive at what? 10 lakhs. So 10 lakhs will be the figure we'll arrive at. This is what means the probabilities of various estimates within a range. So if the fair value is reliably measured, in that case we are satisfying both the conditions, step 1 and step 2. Therefore the transaction is having a commercial substance and the fair value of the asset given up or received is reliably measured. Therefore we can conclude that we can measure the investment property at fair value. I hope I was clear in this. Now another important point is this, that what will be the fair value of the asset given up or the fair value of received. So Ind AS 40 says that in such an exchange, the cost of the investment property which we have received will be the fair value of the asset given up, and if the fair value of asset given up is not clearly evident, then we'll use the fair value of the asset received. This is a very important point, and I think illustrations can be made on this point. That is what to take first, asset given up or asset received. Now I have given you one brief. Now let's say if the commercial substance is not there, or let's say that the fair value could not be reliably measured, then we cannot use the fair value. And if we cannot use the fair value, Ind AS 40 says that we should measure the acquired asset at cost, and in this case the cost will be nothing but the carrying amount of the asset given up. Now let's do example on this to be more clear. So for example, Sun Limited acquired a building in exchange of warehouse whose fair value is 5 lakhs and paid a cash of 2 lakh, and fair value of the building received is 8 lakhs. So in this case we have the fair value of the asset given up, so we will not require the fair value of asset received. Therefore we are measuring the transaction at 7 lakh rupees and not 8 lakh rupees. Also, there is a note, an investment property held by lessee as ROU asset shall be measured initially at cost in accordance with Ind AS 116, which we have already covered, that when any asset is taken on lease, we have to follow Ind AS 116 along with Ind AS 40. Now, second example says that X Limited purchased an building for 30 lakh rupees and the purchase price was funded by a loan. There were taxes of 1 lakh and 20,000 was direct legal cost. Along with that 2 lakh planning commission and 7 lakh construction cost, out of which 40,000 was refundable. So what is the cost? So we'll do nothing but add everything and subtract 40,000 because it was refundable purchase taxes. Now we'll do illustration 3. It says that X Limited purchases a land worth 1 crore and it actually ends up paying 1 crore 20 lakhs because it has taken the option of deferred payment. So in that case, the value of investment property will be 1 crore and 20 lakhs will be recognized as interest expense in PL over a period of 2 years. Now 7.7 says measurement after recognition. See, what we did right now was measurement at recognition, that is initial recognition when we acquire any investment property or when we take it on lease. But now what we are doing is after recognition, that is subsequent recognition, subsequent measurement at balance sheet date. So in subsequent measurement, things might change. For example, we might decide that we'll sell the asset and therefore it will be classified as non-current asset held for sale under Ind AS 105. Or if we had taken the asset on lease, we'll follow Ind AS 116. or if we do not decide to do anything, then we'll keep following the cost model of Ind AS 16. See, this point does not say that you have to account for it as a property, plant and equipment. It is merely saying that you have to use the cost model of Ind AS 16, because I have mentioned earlier that Ind AS 40 gives a reference to the cost model of Ind AS 16 rather than specifying its own cost model. Now this point again is important. See, we do not require to measure the investment property at fair value. That is fine, because we have to use only cost model. But Ind AS 40 also says that entity should measure the fair value for disclosure purposes, not for the balance sheet but for the notes of account, that is for the disclosure of the fair value. So entity should measure fair value. Now such a fair value should reflect the rental income and the assumptions of market participants while pricing the investment property if the property is owned. Now let's say if the property is not owned, if it is taken on lease, in that case also we'll measure the fair value for disclosure purpose, but in that case we'll not measure the fair value of the investment property per se. We'll rather measure the fair value of the ROU asset, of the right of the asset, of that right, and not of the property, the right to use the asset. So the fair value of the right will be different than the fair value of the underlying property. That is a point here. Now there might arise a case where we cannot measure the fair value. Why cannot we measure the fair value? There might be two conditions. Firstly, that the market for comparable properties is inactive. Let's say we want to measure the fair value of a land, but we cannot measure it because the fair value of land in that area is not available to us. Or similarly, if alternative reliable measurements are not available, let's say DCF is not working here. So in that case, we are helpless and we cannot measure the fair value. So such a exception is allowed, and such an exception is allowed only for initial recognition and not for subsequent recognition. So it says that if in the initial recognition an entity cannot measure the fair value for disclosure purpose, the entity shall disclose that it cannot measure the fair value, and it is allowed this exception only for initial recognition purposes. But for subsequent recognition it is not allowed. And if we can avail the fair value of other investment property, then we should disclose those fair values. Now fourth point says that investment property in the course of a construction. See, if there is an investment property under construction, then we cannot, if we cannot measure the fair value but we expect to measure the fair value later on, then we should measure that when it is possible. Now there might be two cases. Firstly, that the fair value of the investment property under construction is reliably measurable later on. So if the fair value of investment property under construction is reliably measured at a future date, so whenever it is reliably measurable, we'll disclose it. And if the construction of the investment property is completed, then we'll not calculate the fair value of investment property under construction. Rather, we can calculate the fair value of the investment property because now the construction is completed. So whichever is earlier on that date, we'll start disclosing the fair value of the investment property. And again, this exception is allowed for initial recognition. After initial recognition, once the fair value is determinable, the entity cannot conclude, it is not allowed to conclude that the fair value of the investment property cannot be measured reliably after initial recognition. So see, point 3 and 4 both are allowing exceptions to measurement of fair value of investment property, and both of them say that it is allowed only for the first recognition or initial recognition. Now 7.8 is transfers. So for example, we have an investment property, but we might decide to later on use it as an owner occupied property. Or similarly, if we have an owner occupied property, we might decide to use that investment property. Or let's say we have investment property, we might decide to use it as an inventory because we want to now use it to sell it in the ordinary course of business. Similarly, we might have an inventory of we might have a land as an inventory, and we might later on decide to use it as an investment property for earning rental income. So there might be multiple cases. So these are covered under this topic, transfers. So the essence of this topic is that we have a property, we have an asset, and because of a change in use of that asset, we have to now reclassify that asset. Now the change in use should be a concrete change in use and not the change in management's intention to change the use. Management's change in intention is not considered significant here. There should be some concrete changes. So these A to D points are giving example. Let's do them. So firstly, we had investment property. Now if there is a commencement of owner occupation or development with a view to owner occupation for a transfer from investment property to owner occupation, then from Ind AS 40 we'll jump to Ind AS 16. Similarly, if there is a commencement with a development with a view to sale or transfer, in that case we'll cover it, we'll jump from investment from Ind AS 40 to Ind AS 2. Now similarly, if we have an owner occupied property and such an owner occupation is ending, then we can jump from Ind AS 16 to investment property Ind AS 40. Or if we had a property with a view to sell it in the ordinary course of business, but instead of that we are giving it out on an operating lease to another party, we can jump from Ind AS 2 to investment property. But in any of these cases, the main point is that there shall be no change in the carrying amount of the property transferred, and it will not change the cost of that property for the measurement of disclosure purposes. And it is pretty obvious. Now see, for example, we say condition A, we have investment property Ind AS 40 which was measured as at cost, and the cost was nothing but the cost model of Ind AS 16. And now we are jumping to Ind AS 16, where again we are using the same cost model. So in effect there is no change in the cost of the asset. So it is again highlighting that point that in any case, in any such transfer, there shall be no change in the cost or the carrying amount of the property transferred. Now illustration 4 gives us an example. Moon Limited purchased a building for 10 million and it was used as a factory. Now that is, it was a owner occupied property and measured under cost model. See, Ind AS 16 allows both, so it can measure at cost model. Now estimated life was 10 years, but due to decline it has the company has rented out the property. So again this is the case of jumping from Ind AS 16 to Ind AS 40, and purchase was on 2011 and we are reclassifying on 2015, that is after the elapse of 4 years. And after 4 years the fair value given is 8 million. So firstly we'll depreciate because it was under PPE cost model. So we'll depreciate the PPE. So 10 million divided by 10 years, that is depreciation of 1 million per year, and we'll depreciate it for 4 years, that is 4 million will be the depreciation. So the carrying amount after 4 years is 6 million. And because the fair value is higher than that, therefore there is no condition of impairment under Ind AS 36. Therefore the building, that is the investment property, will be measured at 6 million itself, because Ind AS 40 again follows the cost model and not the revaluation model. Now we are moving on to the last topics, disposal. So we have an investment property in our books. Now disposal is nothing but the de-recognition of that investment property, either due to disposal, that is sale, or because we are de-recognizing because we are not drawing any future economic benefits from the investment property. Now one of the conditions for recognition was that there should be any future economic benefits flowing to the entity, but if no future economic benefits are flowing, then we cannot recognize, therefore we have to de-recognize the asset. So a disposal can arise in two cases, either due to sale or either due to entering into a financial lease. See, if we give the asset on finance lease, so Ind AS 116 clearly specifies that the lessor should de-recognize from his books and lessee should recognize in his books. Although in after Ind AS 116, in operating lease also the lessee recognizes in his book. Anyways, so disposal occurs in two cases, first is sale or second is entering into a finance lease. So in both of these cases, or in case where there is no FEB, the entity shall de-recognize the investment property from its books. So if it is sold, we follow Ind AS 115 revenue from contracts with customers, which says that an entity shall consider the date of disposal as the date when the recipient or the buyer receives the control over the asset, and there is again a definition of control in Ind AS 115 which I will not cover here. And if such a sale arises, then in that case there might be some gain or loss which will be recognized in the profit and loss account. So this is simple. Also, if there are any liabilities, we will deal with them as per Ind AS 37, and compensation from third parties for investment property that was in loss, and any compensation if received will be recognized in profit and loss account. Simple. Now here there is an example. Sun Limited is having a building which is given an operating lease and the book value is 2 lakhs, and Pluto Limited is offering to buy that for 4 lakhs. So Sun Limited will de-recognize the investment property worth 2 lakhs for getting 4 lakhs, out of which 2 lakhs will be nothing but the gain on disposal, which will be transferred to the profit and loss account. Now case B again says that Sun Limited is having a property valued 2 lakh rupees and Pluto Limited offers to take the building on finance lease for 10 years at a rental of 80,000 per month and present value of minimum lease payments is 3,20,000. So in that case again, because it is a finance lease, Sun Limited will de-recognize in its books. So investment property of 2 lakh will be de-recognized and it will account a lease receivable as an asset because it will receive 3,20,000 worth of lease payments. So 1,20,000 will be the gain on disposal, which will be again transferred to profit and loss account. So this sums up our Ind AS 40. Disclosure I do not cover because it is not testable, and you can solve test your knowledge questions yourself. These are pretty easy questions now after I've covered all the topics and illustrations. So hope this video was of some help, and let's wrap up.